and service of the judges. So, but the true professionals, gentlemen at the bar, will turn around and ask, if these are the professions, what are the doctors, what are the scientists? All those are businesses, not so, gentlemen, I am glad that you called me here to say one or two things. I'll be very brief. By COVID-19, there is no doubt in every profession there must be rules. I know of no unregulated professional body in Israel. Must be regulated. And in our own case, regulation is contained in the rules of professional ethics. That is what it is. That was what it was in the past. That is what it was to be. Now, looking at the rules that they are specific. What? Let me stop there and say that the profession is an honorable profession. And I recall what Ken Deshofola told me in 1999, conference in Ibadan. He governed in Warri, the General Conference in Warri. He said, in this world, there are only two professions. The profession of law, the profession of holy orders. Holy orders being those who live in the word of God, those who are gentlemen in black and service of the judges. So, but the true professionals, gentlemen at the bar, will turn around and ask, if these are the professions, what are the doctors, what are the scientists? All those are businesses, not so, gentlemen, I am glad that you called me here to say one or two things. I'll be very brief. The rules we are going to consider are predicated on one principle. Lawyers are men of honor. Lawyers are gentlemen. Black so, how then do we keep our honor? That's part of the foundation of this rule. Although the rules have been set out in a code-like manner, Rule 7 says, Rule 7 discusses the type of jobs, type of things that lawyers can engage in, and type of things lawyers cannot engage in. But the bottom line of it is that a lawyer being a gentleman, a man of honor, ought not to seem to be engaged in provision of services, whether you call it business or any other name, that tend to reduce the honor and dignity. For instance, if you are a lawyer and you open a barber's shop, up there for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, then you rush from there to your neighbors. How will your clients do that? How will members of the public do that? For a trader in a good market or your market, you are seen to run in and out shop, whatever the quality of the things inside. How will you think about it? How will you think about lawyers? So the type of rules we have the prohibitive rules, which says you cannot do this. And have the permissive rules, which says you cannot do this if it will tell badly. Seven. It says, unless permitted by the General Council of the Bar, hereinafter referred to as the Bar Council, the lawyer shall not practice as a legal practitioner at the same time practice any other profession. I was speaking to a man this morning in my office. He is a lawyer, also a pharmacist. One would say that pharmacy is decent enough for a lawyer to engage with. But what did he tell me? He told me one blank that it is difficult to carry on the two professions at the same time. Why? That one will steal the time. That really reminded me that there is a saying in our profession that law, practice of law, is a jealous mistress. You cannot combine it with any of that. Yes. Then that is a matter of practical impossibility. I give you an example. Take a book or take a law report. You are reading. How's a medical doctor? You are reading a law report to look for the ratio of the case to apply to your case. Nurse, matron, comes in. Doctor, I have an emergency. Imagine the state of mind that will be at that particular time. So the rules, the one that prohibit specific acts, then the one that in practice do not prohibit them, act very adversely. So the result, why some of the rules are set out to protect, to prevent practice of law, such other professions. The practical aspect of it is that you seriously engage in the practice of law to do other business. Well, you asked me to speak. Maybe you have the belief or have the notion that I also engage in business. My friend, I don't. I have no basis for engaging in business. Number of times I've tried to engage in business. And as a petrol station, it collapsed within 6 months. I did one or two other things, it didn't go. So personally speaking, experience in our office, there's no way just business can be fine. But The pandemic has come. It has caused some lawyers a situation that they never completed. You cannot see a lawyer in the side of the road and beg. Therefore, this economy is quite hard. In trying to look for a way forward, I know we can look for alternatives that can at least assist the lawyer. I can assist the lawyer. Sorry. Are you with me?
Go on, sir.
Thank you. So it therefore stands to reason that we must look for alternative that will assist the lawyers to carry on their practice of law, honor, and dignity. That is why this topic is quite important. What experience can I share for? I've said I'm not engaged in no business except farming at a loss in my village. I have a poultry farm. It's been a total disaster. I spend my money on it. Nothing comes out of it. It's not worth it. I have spent it on a plantation to grow what people can eat. Again, it is a disaster. Either that the people in the community will steal, or your own staff will steal you out of business. So at the end of the day, it is what you earn from your lawyer's job that you are going to put down. Not what farming we must do. So what then do I think that lawyers can do? There are some businesses that lawyers can do. I'll tell you from experience. When the monetary market was in good shape, the finance market was in good shape, good interest was being paid by the banks for money that you deposit. To me, that's not business. That's business. You put your money in the bank, the various funds will do it. It will be fixed deposit. Then you earn interest of about 10%. Those days, now it is, I understand it is 2% or 1.5%. It's not worth it now. Or you invest your money in shares. And then you are patient. Annually, when they hold annual company meetings, they are all dividends. What would you do? Or if you invest so much and you are well connected, you may become a director. No, this one that can be. There is no one that requires physical presence that will challenge your conduct and work. Then, of course, there was the other one, commercial papers that we used to buy in those days. 5 million, share want to borrow money from the bank. We go to the bank, please borrow money for us at social price. So then we buy the commercial papers. When the date comes, pay you your capital plus interest. The long and short of it, as I can tell you, is trading of business that will take your time cannot practice. Whatever I say here, I underline it, active practice. A lawyer who is not in active practice can do anything like any other person, can look and do contract. Fortunately, nowadays, for some time now, for some years now, you do contract for government, for a local government. Getting a contract may be easy, You may lobby and get it. But when you finish, when you execute, ask for payment, that may then lure the lawyer into the issue, having to go and lobby to be paid for work that he has done. That's not the work of a gentleman. So contracting basically out. You go on to buy cars and sell. That again have some problems. This is a matter of Ukumbo, as they call it now, maybe buying a car that was stolen somewhere in America or Europe. If they bring it, the investigation comes to this country, likely to be called a question that is a question of integrity, the person who professes. There are so many of them. There is one good trade now that they are doing. I don't know how convenient you combine it with full-time advocate's job. That is becoming a pastor. People, there are many lawyers who I know who are pastors. They're still in practice. Some of them have the conscience to carry on that type of thing. There are many like me who cannot do it. I cannot be a pastor. Anything that will take away 1 minute from my time as an advocate, and invest, so long as the business does not involve my personal organization and operation. So, gentlemen, this is what I see. Let me give you a few examples of what happened, failed attempt to practice to combine law and practice. When we established years ago, there was a colleague of ours, RK Warri, who was the first to make money through compensation, which he collected from his community. Collected on behalf of his community, his own share was big. He bought the first brand of Toyota Crown for himself, bought 2 Toyota Corona for transport, believing that if he runs them as a taxi, he will to support him, lawyers work, that himself will get to do it. 6 months later, 2 Toyota cars, drivers stole everything they got. He got nothing. More money he got from legal practice, now has to expend to repair the car. And sold them. No, nothing. I met Mr. Mo, not Dr. Mo, in practice. At the time I met him, he was the writer of the petrol station, the AP petrol station at Airport Junction. He was selling. People thought that was good money making. But at the end of the day, another organization of Nigeria saying that he made sure of selling engine oil altered by ships being sold out to the bottom of the team. So although the team will show 1 liter, what enters it is less than 1 liter. It is good as long as it is money. He was challenged. Integrity of a lawyer. David T-Bites, Smallish lawyer from had a big Mercedes Benz himself. But 2 or 3 judges wrote on them. People's lawyer. He was doing that. Thought he was making money. At the end of the day, examples, the attempt to combine the practice of law with other. Gentlemen, my advice to young lawyers now is you can still make money from sources other than things that all the profession into dispute. Our time, we could buy and invest in bankers' papers, make fixed deposit. Now, it's no longer worth it. You put your money now in fixed deposit, pay 3%. For the period you put the money, the value of money fall down. And so, gentlemen, this is the way that it is. The area that may be open to us now, maybe, I'm not quite sure, maybe be the area that we can provide legal services. We have this type of program. Very many people are in need of training. Lawyers establishing structures like what we have done. We have organized seminars for targeted people. People who are looking for better and employ the best hands. I said, I like one, no how to lawyers how to pay. But a job or an investment that requires my time to leave the office and come to the office for that business. Something that is an old practitioner whose life has been. We do buy shares. How many people have time to keep to the movement of shares in the stock exchange? Lagos, you can have one person devoted to it. Because that means that in your office, you must have enough number of people to devote to that type of business. And whoever is doing that one will no longer do professional. You don't do professional. You be happy. You be contented with being higher and sell shares. Make profit, lose money, ultimately bring money that everybody can share. I myself will be happy doing that. Gentlemen, so that we can move forward. Practice is dying. Legal practice is dying. We lawyers are killing it. We will conduct ourselves. In case where 2 lawyers can sit down and reach an agreement, we will drag it for years. Because none of us want to speak the truth. We want to talk honestly. That is our first. Judges are helping us to kill it because they will not do it as required. Politicians are helping us to finish our profession off by destroying apex court, from apex court down to the lowest court. Current wave of conflicting orders is there. Anybody who's a judge in this country must have known that in the past, when that thing happened, when I was president of the bar, we pursued the person, we pursued the judge to his file, got his file, went through the file, tried him on his file, and dismissed within the week. I hope that there are still records kept. Politicians, the politician has told me, I defended him in a case, won. First instance, Court of Appeal thought otherwise. 5 papers to go to the Supreme Court. And I found suddenly that he was not coming as regularly as he thought. But I phoned him and said, well, I'm not seeing you. Oh, he said, I'm here, but I just want to be sure. You know, how would the case go? I said, well, I will do my best. What I want now is not the lawyer who will do his best. The lawyer will do more than best. I do not know any lawyer who will do more. Us now in the profession, law guiding us, the legal practitioners, most of them want to go in and read it one for one for you, because you have it, you know it. So we can all read, all try to understand that any conduct of a lawyer has a bad effect. The smell of his colleagues and the ordinary people is something that the lawyer. Thank you. This is my small contribution. Questions come. I know it, I will answer. I don't know it, I will answer. I'm sure that you forgive me. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thanks for the detailed insights and for sharing your experience with us. We'll come back to you again. For the participants, you can send in your questions through the chat box. At this moment, we will bring in Dr. Ubani. Dr. Ubani, you have heard, Chief. Looking at the present economic circumstances, do you think that the rules of professional conduct that puts some sort of restriction on a lawyer engaging in business, do you think that's irrelevant?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope I'm very loud.
Yeah,
I
very
was
clear.
barely hearing. Yeah, I was barely hearing Chief. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's from my own side, my own device. You know, but I heard a bit of what our learned Silk, the former president of the Great Bar, said. He brought to bear his versatile experience and very rich experience and idea on this very topic. I also want to take this time to appreciate your branch for doing this. You know, this is part of the primary responsibilities of the branches, you know, which we have been conversing, that the branches must be alive to their responsibility in helping the lawyers within their constituency to gain such rich experience that will actually aid our practice. You know, so I just give it to this great branch, Warri, for doing this. You know, I am clearly elated to be part of this. And now I also want to acknowledge the other speaker who will speak after me for being part of this. Now, straight to the point, I'm sure why this lecture is organized. I mean, I'm talking about with reference to this topic. Is a current happening within our legal community with regards to putting food on the table. The COVID-19 pandemic was clearly devastating to our legal practice. Now we thought that was over. We had the NSAS protest that affected also our practice, where lawyers were restricted. People were not making movement, especially in Lagos, where that crisis, hit the roof. We were clearly restricted. We were not allowed to move, and it affected, compounded the problems of lawyers who go to court. I also was not ignorant of Jusun strike. Jusun strike was very devastating. And we have a marketplace, and the court is a marketplace of lawyers. Many lawyers were really thrown into total confusion. They couldn't afford to put food on the table. And it was a very hard time for lawyers across the country. And of course, we now have to also not forget the issue of technology. Technology is actually displacing the traditional way of doing things. I was taken aback in which one lecture I attended, or one webinar, where people were even trying now to put agreement in the system. You don't need to even meet the lawyer. Agreement can be, all concluded on internet, with a client, and they will charge you little or no money in order to actually do your job for you as a client. So there is clearly an encroachment on the economic lifespan of business of law for lawyers. So it's becoming very restrictive. And every year, almost 5,000 lawyers are being churned out, from the law schools. So the market is becoming over competitive, So we now have this issue, that as a lawyer, you cannot, engage in any other trade or business because of the fact, one, that the profession itself is an ancient one and very conservative at that, and very jealous. Because of the fact that you have to show high level of efficiency and proficiency and attention to whatever is given to you, the law profession does not want to share with any other profession whatsoever, because lawyers, the legal people, will not want a situation where clients will be complaining that I gave this particular job to this lawyer, but because he's engaged in some other businesses and all that, that was why he has not been able to pay attention to what I have given him and all that. That will bring a lot of disrepute and bad name to the legal profession. So the forefathers who drew up our rules of professional conduct actually specifically now made a provision as to what and what lawyers should engage and what they should not engage. Now there is the first rule. If you look at rule 7, sub 1, it says you cannot engage in any other profession except with the consent of the General Counsel of the Bar. In other words, you can be a lawyer and maybe practice as a medical doctor, but you have to have consent of the General Counsel of the Bar. I mean, when you have any other profession, you may have been training. You may have been trained as an accountant. At the same time, you're a lawyer. Or you may have trained as a medical doctor. At the same time, you're a lawyer. And you now want to combine legal practice and law. For you to do that, you have to get the consent of the General Counsel of the Bar before you can practice both professions simultaneously. If you don't get their consent, you can't do that. Now, I don't know of any lawyer who may have actually applied to practice as a medical doctor and then as a lawyer and has been granted that consent. I'm yet to know. But what I know is that I see people from other professions coming to study law. And when they come to study law, they want to pay attention to the legal practice. They will not want to even practice their profession. Like I had a doctor. I had a medical doctor who has graduated as a medical doctor while I was in the University of Nigerian, who came to read law. And I don't think we asked him, are you going to practice medicine and law today? He said, no, he actually has abandoned the medical practice. He wants to be a lawyer and practice law. So I have never seen where a person is practicing law at the same time doing the work of a medical doctor or practicing accountancy. But as I said earlier, the law allows you to do that only if you have the consent of the General Counsel of the Bar. And my own statement is I have never seen any person who have actually applied or who have gotten such a consent. Now, there is what we call total prohibition in that particular rule. Sub rule 2 says you cannot while practicing as a lawyer, engage in either trading, or in commodity or selling and buying. You cannot. Because this is a particular business that will actually bring the legal practice, legal profession to a disrepute. That somebody is an matter, you are, buying and selling in a area market in Aba or somewhere in Onisha, and then you are engaging as a lawyer. Nobody will want to engage such a lawyer who is an matter. Nobody. Because one, for the fact that he's even a trader in the first place, it's totally discouraging. He will never pay attention to the law report. He can never pay attention to the precedents. There's no way he can even prepare the briefs, by being a trader and then engaging in the practice of law. And so the rule is prohibit it completely and say you cannot, while engaging as a lawyer, engage in other selling of either items or trade. Now, the sub-rule 3 allows that you can be a lawyer at the same time, be a company director, or you can be a board director, you can be a company secretary. You can also be a shareholder. You can be a shareholder. Now, these are the 3 major sub-rules, in that. One is a restriction. You cannot, but that means it is a profession that must have engaged, you must have gone on retraining. As an accountant, it takes how many years to be an accountant, the same thing with medical, or any other profession that takes time, like an engineer. But for you to practice the engineering at the same time, practice law, that rule says you must get the consent of General Counsel of the bar. Then I mentioned the one that is total prohibition. They cannot allow you at all. And I also give you the one that is an exception. You can, at the same time, be a director, be a shareholder, and be a board secretary. This is the major provisions of the law. Now, the issue is this. The law profession is very conservative, no doubt. The law profession is an ancient profession bequeathed to us by the British authorities, and we know how conservative they are. It's only aristocrats that actually read law. If you study the history of legal profession in Britain, you must come from a very wealthy family and a very notable family before you go and study law. The same thing when law was actually bequeathed to us in the country. For rich people, if you are not from a very rich home, you may not be given opportunity to be admitted into law faculty. Not now that there is a liberalization of for educational sector where anyone can be a lawyer, no matter the family background. So he has his conservative, he has his own ethos and ethics, and it's a profession that, as I said earlier, is very jealous. Will not allow you to be a lawyer at the same time engage in any other profession that actually denigrate the law profession, because it's another profession of arrogance. When I went to law school, where Ibironke taught us, in law school, he told us many things, that a lawyer should not enter Okada. A lawyer should not even enter any of the buses. If the worst that can happen to you is to enter taxi, he encouraged us to show some level of professional arrogance, because it is only profession that nobody can just enter into it and be anything. So there is this particular aura that goes with the lawyer. So the law profession will not accommodate any other profession in terms of its conservativeness and all that. And that is why this rule is made. But in the light of the new reality where there is so much restriction now in the economic space, and lawyers are being churned out in thousands, does it mean that the entrepreneurial spirit of a legal practitioner can just die like that? Is there any room to really accommodate some of those who are entrepreneurs, who are enterprising? And I look at that particular provision of the law. I did not see where that law says, that rule says, you cannot employ intermediaries. You may not personally be engaged in running a business or even in buying and selling. No. But you can put down money and say, look, I want, for multiple streams of income. You get people that can supervise, can do all that, because you have put your money, and then have honest men and women. Because the most important thing is that the law does not say that if you do that, then you are violating the rules. No. So far, you are not the one engaged personally in buying and selling. You can put down money and say, look, I have this relation of mine that can do that, or employ workers who are honest enough. Although in Nigeria, we know it today, how many people are really honest, So if you don't show some level of interest in your business, they will just use you to make money, and then you become empty again. So you have to be careful in engaging in such business, but you cannot engage in it, as I said earlier, personally, because the law profession will not be compatible with you buying and selling. So nothing stopping a lawyer to, put down money as a seed money and then get people who can now engage in, business of buying and selling on your behalf, but you are not involved directly. If you do that, I don't think you have breached that rule. I'm yet to see any restriction that says if you get third party to do business on your behalf, you have actually offended that rule. And as the learned chief also has said, a lawyer can engage in farming. There is nothing wrong in engaging in farming. It's part of generating some level of income. Like many lawyers are farmers, they have farm lands in their villages, but again, to have people that have to do it, on your behalf, and then you have to do the supervision and be sure that money is being generated there. Good luck if you succeed in getting honest men and women who will help you in order to generate that extra profit you need. Because it's important that you have this multiple stream of income, because the economic space is becoming so restricted that if you depend on the legal profession, and we had the kind of experience we had with pandemic, like, of COVID, where you have nothing coming in. There is no way your family will have regard and respect to you when you come back and tell them, oh, I'm observing the rules, that I am not engaging in anything to bring in extra food. And you are home, you are going nowhere, you are restricted, and there is other businesses that can help you to bring in money and all that. If you get third party to engage in that on your behalf, so far it does not offend the rules. I will not in any way see anything absolutely wrong in doing that kind of a thing. So as a lawyer, we are now, advocating, and I'm sure your friends will be also part of this advocacy, that the entire rules of professional conduct we need to look at once again, and accord with reality of our time. Issue of advert, people are still, pushing for it. In America, we have great practitioners there, and they still advertise, and it does not in any way, diminish the legal practice in America, where people practically advertise, their proficiency, and it does not. So we need to be realistic with some of these rules, and that's why we're also arguing that the issue of development of entrepreneurial spirit, we should encourage it. If a lawyer has this acumen for business, and it's, and he has people that can do that, successfully on his behalf with his little or no supervision, there is nothing that can make the lawyer not engage in that. And our law should be a bit more relaxed, in not making them to be held liable for violating the rules of professional conduct. The reality of the time demands a holistic review of the rules of professional conduct, and make some accommodation where it is absolutely necessary. As long as the profession is not denigrated, as long as the profession itself is not put into disrepute, as long as the profession itself, is not put into public perception as being something that has brought disrepute and all that, I think we should now begin to relax the law. Nothing stopping you as a lawyer from writing a book. If you can't make money to writing a book, there's nothing that says you cannot. Nothing stopping you to do it if you are, into painting, and you can generate so much money from painting. I don't think it is incompatible or bring any disrepute for you being a painter who makes income from that angle at the same time practice your law. As long as small time will not be given to the painting, but then you practice yourself, and then probably bring a situation where clients will begin to make a complaint that most of the job they have given to you are not paying attention to, that painting is taking more of your time. And I think the reason for all these rules is to make sure that there is no reason why any client can complain that this lawyer is not paying attention to what I've given him because he is doing this, he's into this. I think that is the idea behind that rule. The legal profession is clearly very jealous. It wants you to pay adequate, and you cannot be a good lawyer actually if you don't pay attention, if you don't read, if you are not efficient, if you don't engage in hard work. Because sometimes some lawyers go to bed by 3 a.m. when writing briefs, some 4. The following morning, they are awake in order to be in Supreme Court or in Court of Appeal. It's a job that is clearly entitled. So you don't have any other profession to contend with it when you want to. And so that is the reason why this rules come. But if you can combine both and efficiently pay attention to your client so that your client cannot complain, and you do any other business that is not incompatible, it's very important we mark that word, not incompatible with the legal profession. I think this is the time for some of these rules to be looked into in order to relax some of those prohibitions and allow lawyers, because there is no honor in poverty. There is no honor at all. Yes, there is no honor in poverty. Yeah, that you are, trying to preserve your honor, and then you come back home and tell your wife, today you work, you work and nothing has happened. The honey that she calls you every day can only be there and constantly when there is money. If there is no money, even your children sometimes when you give them instruction, they look you from head to toe and say, this man is not capable, of providing for me. So why would I even give you respect? So God will never allow us to fall into that error of trying to protect the profession while we are destroying our marriage. So there must be something that must be done to accommodate certain thing that is clearly not incompatible with the legal profession, so that we can have men and women who are still, entrenching or enthroning dignity in whatever they do, rather than saying we're protecting the profession. Meanwhile, lawyers are going with shoes that are sometimes point to Warri, and some will be pointing to Lagos, because you are trying to protect the profession. We should protect the individual who is a lawyer. So to me, there is no much left which Chief Okpoko himself has not said. In my own little experience, I am not good in business, and so I will never venture into any business, even as a lawyer, because I don't have that training. I'm not from Anambra, but I know many Anambra people who will venture into business at the same time do their law. But then, if that business does not in any way remain incompatible with law, we should make some level of allowances, for those who have entrepreneurial spirit. That is what I want to say. Then secondly, I want also to say that our law school, it should be more accommodating, in teaching some of these corporate practice, that engages, that allows entrepreneurial spirit. Even the universities itself, we must begin to expand our curriculum to include entrepreneurial spirit. A situation where you depend only on one thing. And when act of nature now comes in and you cannot be able to, be present in the marketplace to do that business, then something else has to give way, So as I said earlier, no dignity in poverty. It's important that I will stop here and then allow my colleague also to say one or two things. Maybe we can expand the discussion by the questions that may be thrown at us. I must say that Chief Okpoko himself has done very good justice to almost all the issues, what is allowed, what is restricted, and what is actually prohibited, and what the lawyers can do. Painting, as I said, writing books, farming, and some other things you can do, or get people to do those things you think that the law itself has prohibited. They can do it for you and give you accounts, So far, you're not directly engaged. And so let us not die in poverty thinking that the law will not allow us to put our money and get third parties to, work for us. Our monies can work for us, but as long as you're not the one directly involved. But I'm also saying that we must take a holistic look at this rule. And if there is any way we can expand it, remember in that rule, it says also, and many other businesses that the General Council will now, prescribe. In other words, not only selling and buying, there may be other things, but up to now, they have not prescribed any other one that is banned. But selling and buying mainly, and being a commission agent are two ones they mentioned that you, as a lawyer, cannot practice law and be a commission agent or engage in buying and selling. And then any other, they would now, from time to time, prescribe. But I don't think they have prescribed any. So, but my thinking is that all these things, don't get yourself directly involved, especially those ones that are directly prohibited. Don't get yourself. Get people, if you have entrepreneurs, to let them do it for you, supervise, and then have multiple streams of income. There is no dignity in poverty. That is my last statement, and I drop my voice at this point and allow others to contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ubani. We'll come back to you again. Thanks so much for that detailed analysis. Mr. Warri, you have listened to our leader, Chief Okpoko, who is Senior Arbitrator of Nigeria, and Dr. Ubani. They have looked at the rule extensively, pointing out the trades that are allowed and those that are not allowed. Now, looking at your background, you have a first degree in business administration, second degree in business administration. You have been in business before you joined the noble legal profession. And also looking at the income of the average Nigerian lawyer, which areas do you think that lawyers can invest in without necessarily violating the rules of professional conduct, get returns on investment, and also not that will not allow family members or those that have entrusted their money to run away with their money.
Okay, well, it's nice to be here. I want to thank the earlier speakers, especially our leader, who is a father to me. You know, like you said, my background is in business, but I grew up as a lawyer's son. And so very early in life, I was a bit familiar with the fact that there were restrictions to what lawyers could do and not do. Maybe that explains why I took a circuitous route to law. I first went to do business, which is what I do principally. Now, I think that the earlier speakers have said something which I think is helpful. I want to use the term investor because really, rather than look at yourself as a direct participant, which is what my two earlier speakers, there's nothing that prohibits me from investing in a business enterprise. So I'm going to have this conversation on the basis that lawyers are going to be investors in business enterprises. I suspect that when they take that point, then there's no question of it necessarily conflicting with the rules, subject, of course, the guidelines that whatever you invest in should be such that does not bring the profession to disrepute, you know, in terms of your relation with other investors. So that's something we need to look at. Now, where I think we should start to discuss is what I've said, identifying opportunities arising from your current business or practice. One of the things that is helpful, even at these difficult times, is to remember that because you've practiced law for some time, there are certain skills, contacts, knowledge that you have acquired over the time. And when business is bad, when practice is bad, you may forget that there is a good thing there. So what can we do? First thing is to say that what opportunities arise from the fact that as lawyers, you have contacts. Most lawyers can speak. Most lawyers can write. We tend to have, you know, some intellectual capacity. And lawyers, depending on your practice, have networks, all right? So for whatever it is, you need to look at what is it about my legal practice that I can leverage on to better my position in terms of earnings and all that. So first thing is to let us look at your human, physical, and other assets. Every law, take an average law office. An average law office has lawyers. It has physical assets, computers and stuff like this, things like that. And you may then ask yourself, who else can use these facilities? What else can we use these facilities for? Now, let me take a step back. One of the things that I see is that nearly all of us as lawyers are running our independent offices. You know, so everybody's opening a law office. First thing is to really ask ourselves, do we all need these law offices? Can we, for example, look at co-locating? Because my understanding is that you can make more money or you can save money. It comes to the same thing when you look at your balance sheet. Am I making more money? Can I save money? And I understand that my ability to save money is more under my control than my ability to earn more money. So one of the first things we must look at as lawyers, where is it that we can do cost savings? So for example, very simple, should we be thinking more of co-locating, minimum? Why can't we share offices and at least reduce the cost of doing business? And that means that hopefully at the end of the day, we have a little bit more money. So that's something we need to look at. And associated with that is the potential to merge, all right? One of the things we see here is that there are so many small sole practice, Ohimor Co, Johnson and Peter and Co, and all that. But we know that there are law firms that have 4,000 partners. And I think in Nigeria, there's at least a law firm with 96 partners. The question is this probably not the time for people to look at mergers, trying to work together? Because that may ensure that even if we are not earning more, we're at least saving some money. But then
some of the things that we can look at very clearly, and especially in terms of investment and acting as investors, is agricultural production, processing, and marketing. Now, the reality is that if you look at food supply in recent times, it is probably diminishing. Cost of food and all that is going up. So maybe if we can, I know that our learned Sikh talked of his experience in farming, and he didn't seem to have had a good story. Is it also possible for us to collaborate? Because I've been in business for quite a bit. And one of the challenges we have in this country is most of us are solo players because we really don't understand, how to work together. The reality is that whether it's the legal profession or entrepreneurship, for example, you're not likely to go too far working alone. So one of the issues I'm raising is how can we work collectively? How can we collaborate, even in, say, agricultural production? For example, just like our learned Sikh said, so he has a farm. What if that farm were owned by, as part of the investors, there were 5 other people, there were 2 other people. And so when, of course, the learned Sikh could not go to supervise, his other partners could supervise. Then maybe the farm will improve its performance and maybe we'll have some better returns. Now, I need us to especially look at the area of agri-processing. One of the biggest challenges we have in this country is not so much that we don't produce food or agricultural products, is that 60% or more of all the tomatoes they produce in Nigeria will go to waste. All the mangoes will go to waste. Because when it's the season of mangoes, it floods your market and then they can't sell it. All you need to do is go to Ikudu market, the trash around the Ikudu market, and you see mangoes, rotting mangoes and whatever, the fruits that is in season. Could we, as lawyers, working with other investors, begin to look at processing? And I'll give you a very simple one. Take fruits, like mango, for example. I know that there are South African firm, for example, that air dries those mangoes and things and packs them. And they give you on a plane and you eat dried mango. It's big business. It is something, for example, that people can look at. And even take our common, what looks like common cassava. All we see of cassava is that it's used to make gari, fufu, and all that. Industrial starch, for example, we cannot, the demand for industrial starch globally is of such a nature that even if you double all the cassava production in Nigeria, it will not scratch the surface. So these are some of the things that we can look at. Now, a key area which in a way has been talked about is working in the area of providing information, especially IP, intellectual property, in terms of information, in terms of entertainment too. Let me give you some examples. Very simply, lawyers can very easily develop and deliver courses, all kinds of courses. The reality is that you already have something, knowledge that people are willing to pay for. People want to know. So one of the things that lawyers can easily begin to do is begin to share more of themselves and their knowledge with the world. And you can do that in various forms. You can write books, you can do courses, but you can also do YouTube. You can go on YouTube, things with like podcasts. You can do internet radio. All that is important is that I'm saying you have information that the rest of the world wants to hear. Find a way to share it with the rest of the world. It helps you build visibility. And beyond building visibility, it can help people, draw people with what we call inbound marketing. It can, because people see you talk, deliver lectures in a particular area, it can become possible for them to say, yeah, that lawyer that I saw, that guy, that's the guy I want to be able to deal with. Now, I think it was Ubani who referred to some of the changes where you have technology now competing with lawyers, so to speak. The reality is that it is going to grow. That's legal tech, that's the term for it. The use of technology in legal practice. Now, right now, most of us are not seeing that as an opportunity. It's something that we should look at. How is it? Because we have a knowledge of the practice of law. We may not have the knowledge of technology. But your knowledge of law, if you partner with somebody who understands technology, can help design apps, solutions, technological solutions to most of the problems, some of the problems that we have in practice. I know I did an online course recently on legal tech, and really, contracts, easy. They are using artificial intelligence, and they've tested it. I mean, with the greatest respect, it is difficult to compete for mundane, ordinary, issues, standard forms, standard contracts. These are being automated. And the tough thing I will say to you is that outside our jurisdiction, the interesting thing is that the people who are offering these services are not law firms. So if you talk about preparing for problems, I think the pandemic is just the beginning. In other jurisdictions, we now have boutique firms that do consulting, the big consulting firms abroad, actually giving legal advice abroad. We don't know how long it will take, but you have to prepare for the fact that such a thing could come to Nigeria at some point. So can we, instead of working against change, can we try to cooperate with change? Can we say, look, what is clear is that technology is going to be more prevalent in the practice of law. How can I, with my knowledge of law, try and use technology to better the practice of law? So I'm riding on the back of a natural change process rather than attempting to work against it. Now, the other area I talked about, so I've talked of courses, podcasts, and all that. It's also the area of entertainment. There are, as a lawyer, you can write scripts, I believe, around especially things that show what the practice of law is. Okay. One good example I want to share with you. Some of us may know an author called John Grisham. I don't know how many of us know that John Grisham is a lawyer. Okay, John Grisham is a lawyer, but most of his books are about law, courts, and things like that. There's no reason why we can't have a Nigerian version of that. Also, I want to share with you, there's a book I read years ago, What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School. It was written by a guy called Mark McCormack. Mark McCormack is actually a lawyer. Spent only about 3 years in practice of law and spent all his other time writing books. He owned, until his death, the biggest sports management company in the world. He's a lawyer. So we need to look at what else can we use our skills and knowledge in law, in what other areas can we use them? You can write scripts for movies. You can, so this area of intellectual content, for me, it's a natural extension of the kind of areas that we as lawyers can get involved in. The other thing that is also popular now is that you can actually do freelance legal work online. Okay, there are websites like Upwork, for example, where people post requirement for lawyers, and you can go there and say, yes, I can draft this for you. I will charge you. You begin, whatever it is, it's a potential place to earn money. Of course, we should not forget public speaking. Most lawyers have a gift of gab. Great persuasive speakers. I do not see why we cannot look at considering public speaking as an additional source of income, especially even if not income from day one. At least it gives you visibility. We have to understand that our profession, especially in Nigeria, doesn't allow us to advertise. But it doesn't say that you can't give speeches. It doesn't say that you can't share your knowledge through some of all these other forms, which expose you to the world, and which may then mean that when these people have a need for a lawyer, they might be coming to get your service. So the other thing I want to talk about, quite frankly, is the area of real estate. Okay, as an investor, for Christ's sake, one of the funny things is that us as lawyers are usually the ones who have to, write all the deeds and all that. And while we are doing that, most of us forget that we can also take positions. All right, because the good news about being a lawyer is that sometimes when people are starting to move into an area, you may be the first to know. Typically, it's between surveyors and lawyers. Surveyors go early into the bush. That's why a lot of surveyors have made money, not so much from providing survey service as the ability to buy land early, sometimes without having to pay full time. And you see a lot of surveyors having large swaths of land in areas, and later they sell off, and so that's something that lawyers, as we should very easily begin to look at. And you really, if you do one or two good real estate deals, they can go a long way in helping to keep your boat afloat. So these are some of the things that I've talked about. So look at information products, just to do a bit of recap. Look at information products. What can we do? Books, courses, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever that shares what you know with the world. You can look at developing, so we've talked of courses. You should also be looking at being able to work with technology providers to craft solutions for the legal industry. So they need your understanding of the law in order to help them design technology that serves lawyers, for example, and serves the world. I've also said here that I think we should look quite seriously at stuff like agricultural production, especially the processing and marketing bit. There's a huge opportunity there for processing of agri products so they don't go to waste. And you need to worry about a country where we only get items in the season. For example, in Nigeria, there's a time when there's plantain, and after a while, you don't see it. The question is, if you and I could put a team together that could buy plantain when it's in season and make it available when it is not in season, that looks like a great opportunity. Could we also, rather than have mangoes go to waste, can we simply use the drying techniques, simple technologies to dry those mangoes, and before you know, they have a shelf life of 6 months, 1 year, and then we can look at probably exporting them. These are things we may look at doing potentially. I mean, there are opportunities around tourism. Now I say that, please, with the understanding that we can work as investors, okay? I think it's a bit of a challenge that the tourism potential in this area is not, we haven't quite been able to harvest it. And I see lawyers as thought leaders. By the way, some of what I'm sharing with you is because lawyers are thought leaders. And even if you are not going to make it happen, you can, catalyze action. You can help get our people to begin to think a bit more deeply. So tourism, for example, and there are various aspects. If we had a bit of peace and a bit of design around this area, there's no reason why we are not doing water tours, in the waterways. There's no reason, all right? There are countries where you make a lot of money from simply boat rides. down the creeks. And some of you know I lived in Vietnam for about 2.5 years. And if you look at the enormous amount of money that the Vietnam makes from tourism, you walk into the airport, there are like 4,000 people coming into the airport. Where are they all going? Nearly all of them are just going through to look at some caves and some boat rides, and it's huge opportunity. So I don't know. I think those are some of the things that immediately come to mind. I suspect that at the question and answer session, we may have an opportunity to expand a bit more. And just to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ohimor. We are on the question and answer section now. Let's start with you, Chief. Looking at the rules of professional conduct, the rule says businesses that are not incompatible with the practice of law. Mr. Ubani has talked about reforms. Don't you think that, for example, that part of the rule is too wide and confusing to practitioners, and there is need for reforms as far as our rules are concerned? And I also observed that you are making some notes. Let's have your thoughts generally before we round up.
Thank you. Well, life has one thing that is constant, that is change. Made these rules, as they stand now, dates up to 2007. That was when the rules were made. Up to this time, 50 years later, in the human society, there's always room for change. Because over this period, we've had a lot of experience. Today, for example, hearing about so many things are coming up. There's room for change. But the change that will result in lowering standard of conduct, not something to be entertained. Complain about too many lawyers that produce over 5,000 lawyers a year. So, I think there will be enough work. Lawyers are good managers. Lawyers are good managers. They can be employed and can be working in offices and commercial houses as managers. Country does not mean that everybody must go to court. Wherever you are, you must keep this. If you are going to be identified as a lawyer in the place where you work, then you have a duty with the rules. Answer the first question. The room improvement. The rules as they stand, did not say they cannot be modified or amended or improved upon. They can be improved upon. Let there be no improvement that will reduce the standard of status. You have to be strict on this. The other day, let me tell you this, the other day, I went to the meeting of body of benchers. What did I get? People to be called to the bar. About 40 of them did not complete their forms. The recommendation which the body of benchers accepted was, all right, since seniority is important at the bar, let them give the chance, let us give them chance. Before, where do you do that? Where do you have that culture of non-enforcement of blatant rules? So that's something that should not be tolerated. I know that in the UK, if you are going to be called to the bar and you are 1 minute late, that is your end for that period. If you are not able to complete your papers before the date of call, before the fixed date, you do not get called. But here, we are always reducing standard. We're always lowering standard. What is the thing? We said before, that let the standard for going to study law let it be a second degree. They say, oh, no, that is to punish children of poor people. I don't know where somebody like me I stand. I do not qualify as a son of a rich person. There's room for improvement, but not improvement that will reduce what we have now as a standard any lower than what it is. And Dr. Ubani and my friend Ohimor, they done very, very well. I thank them for the exposure. Mr. Ohimor talked about merger. I don't know whether Ohimor talked about it, and so on. From day one in 1971, I took the view that there is no way one man practice as a lawyer to survive. Therefore, whether there's money or no money, we must have partnership. Hello, are you with me?
Yes.
Why would you, Chief? Why would you?
Whether you have money or you have no money, partnership was the way out. That was what I said at that time. And I preached it. I practiced it. The year I started practice was the year I called Okpoko. They joined me, and we were practicing from my bedroom. So later he joined the Ministry of Justice and ended up as Solicitor General. When he left, I brought in Mr. Delepe, now His Royal Majesty, the OV of Ubu, brought him in, worked together. He started joined us, and that was how we started to increase the partnership stage where we are now. Next thing to do is to talk seriously about merger. If we don't have merger, many law firms will close because either because the original person is old or is retiring. Because in the profession, if you don't retire voluntarily at the time you do, your colleagues may retire you, or you have the forces of nature will force you to stop work. These are the things that we should look at now. Because if we have merger and there are enough lawyers in the firm, certainly we can ask somebody who specializes on investment for us, somebody who will do things specifically outside the actual fiscal practice of law. So merger is an area to watch. Merger is what we are looking up to come to our rescue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief. We are very grateful for your intervention. Dr. Ubani, there is a question directed at you. The question is, what is your take on a legal practitioner taking on practice as tax consultant or property consultant as accountant will do, together with legal practice, bearing in mind that these are regulated by Acts of National Assembly? This question is from Valencia Satria. It's directed at Dr. Ubani.
Did he mention property consultancy?
Yeah, let me repeat it. What is your take on a legal practitioner taking on practice as tax consultant or property consultant as accountant will do, together with legal practice, bearing in mind that these are regulated by Acts of National Assembly?
Yeah. It's a very good question. You know, tax consultancy is what is referred to in Rule 7 sub Rule 1. If you look at it, it says, unless permitted by the General Counsel of the Bar, a lawyer cannot practice his profession alongside with other professions. And tax consultancy is what these guys who are into tax does. It's a training. You have to go through many years of training to be a tax consultant. And so for that is a profession that requires training. It's up to other 4 or 5 years to be a tax consultant. You have to, even after you finish as an accountant, you still have to go to professional school in order to become a consultant in taxation. So it is a profession as defined. So you have to seek the consent of the General Counsel of the Bar in order to combine both. Not to violate the rules of professional conduct and all that, because it is a profession that requires a formal training, and you cannot in any way engage in it without the permission if we have to apply that rule. But I know of many lawyers who are into that, and I don't think they have even sought any particular clearance or consent from the council. Because I know one of my friends who is also who has, though he employed accountants, he has a law firm. He has a firm of taxation and accountancy. But he has workers who are trained in accountancy who are doing it. And so he can, and his name is not in the letterhead, but he is a trained accountant. But he has these two law firms, and all that. So unless the person who has just asked that question will say he has people who are trained in that profession, who is running that firm, and he is probably overseeing it, but he is not directly involved. Because the purpose of actually not allowing you as a lawyer to engage in other professions is not to avoid a situation where you will not pay attention to legal practice. Because legal practice is very, very, very jealous. It doesn't want a situation where you are practicing as a lawyer, at the same time you are practicing as a medical doctor, you are practicing as an accountant, as an engineer. Because these are courses, these are professions that are very tasking. So it is important we, make that decision. Any profession that will take your time is clearly incompatible with the legal practice, because you cannot be able to combine both. But as I said earlier, I love what the third party did by listing out all the as a business guy who studied business administration. He has listed all the opportunities that are available, which do not run into conflict with the legal practice, because the legal practice was very specific as to what it prohibited. He said, buying and selling, being a commission agent. These are the two major areas in life that the law rules, prohibit completely, doesn't allow, and any other that from time to time that they will now prescribe as being incompatible. In the absence of that prescription, these are the two major ones that are known to us. Any other thing you can do that does not offend the rules of professional conduct is clearly legitimate. Somebody asked a question that, look, all these ones we are mentioning, they are capital intensive. There is nothing that is not capital intensive. Even the issue of buying and selling. If you want to engage in buying and selling now, from China or from any of these Asian countries, you have to bring out some money that is reasonable enough to engage in buying and selling. So there is nothing that doesn't require money, but it's also how big do you want to start or how small do you want to start. And as I said earlier, you can do most of these things without directly getting involved to avoid an issue of violation of rules of professional conduct. So we must begin to be more strategic. We must begin to clear ways, to help lawyers also to be alive and protect themselves, because dignity of person is very key. We cannot dignify the profession, whereas we indignify those who are practitioners of the profession itself. So we must make sure that food is on the table. This is what makes you a man. The moment you fell in that responsibility to put food on the table, you have felt that even as a lawyer. So we must begin to relax some of these rules to allow those who have entrepreneurial spirit to come into law, at the same time have small time to raise small money to make sure that they keep afloat, especially when there are issues like pandemic. This pandemic, we may likely experience more in future. We're not saying, well, it's not a prayer point, may it not happen again, but you cannot rule out these things happening. If it does happen and we are grounded and we are locked down and we are restricted, what do we do? When our marketplace is short, what do we do to keep afloat? We have to be more strategic in devising more means, in allowing lawyers to do some other thing that can bring in extra money and for them to remain afloat. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ubani. There's a follow-up question, and the question is whether, considering the present economic situation and the lack of clientele, will it be out of place for a lawyer to be engaged in Uber business, Uber or booked business?
Book, writing a book.
No, Uber.
Uber, okay,
Yeah.
lawyer writing. Oh no, that is clearly incompatible. A taxi ride, no. You may be doing it. Some lawyers, when they are going back home in the night, in Lagos here, even in Abuja, they carry some passengers. pretending to carry them as relations and all that. At the end of the day, when they get to their destination, they say, okay, oh yeah, you know, and all that. Let them not see you. Let them not see you. Because if there is no food on the table that night and you are going home as a lawyer with your car and you have you know, fuel in your car, there is nothing wrong in lifting them as a friend. But when you get to the bus stop, tell them, say, boy, find me smart. But if they know you to be a lawyer, please, it's very dangerous. Because it is this issue of incompatibility that made that route to be made. Anything that is clearly that denigrates the profession, anything that will bring the profession to disrepute, anything that will make why will a lawyer be a taxi driver? It gives an impression that, look, you are bringing this, you are making this profession to be lower in the esteem of the people. So you have to be careful not to engage in it. To be an Uber driver, no. I don't think it. But you can invest in Uber business. Yes, you can. Oh, you can. You can, because you're not a driver. Yeah, you can invest in Uber business. You can. There was one time I gave money to somebody, you know, who told me that he doesn't have a car, and I gave him money, 1.1 million to buy a car. I ended up, you know, being frustrated, and I had to sell the car off for 300,000 naira. So I lost my 1.1. So it's not an easy thing. Anything you're not directly involved, Nigerians are too dishonest, you know. So, but good luck if you have honest people to run your business and still give you a good account. It's not a good experience for most of us who have ventured one way or the other, and having persons to do that business on our behalf. We come out, you know, crying because of the issue of dishonesty that is generally, you know, applicable and prevalent here in this country. That is the only problem. If you have honest men to help you do that directly, go ahead and do that, but you should not be directly involved.
Okay, thank you so much. I have another question for you before we go to Mr. Ohimor. The rules of professional conduct talks about buying and selling. In this era of online trade, the question is whether if a lawyer is engaged in online selling and buying without physically being present, does it amount to violation of the rules of professional conduct?
No, if you're not physically engaged in it, you know, if you're not the one physically engaged in it, you know, there is nothing wrong at all. You know, you must expand our horizon. As I said earlier, when these rules were made, as the chief himself, you know, rightly pointed out, was 2007. The world is becoming too small. There are so many deployments of technological things now into our life naturally. In fact, we spend more time now in the internet space more than the physical life. Most times I'm in the office, you know, I will be on internet. In the house, I will be on internet. I don't even have time to go out anymore. Almost all our time now is spent on internet and all that. So in this era of technology, it will be very difficult for us not to look at the rule holistically and see where we can make some changes to accommodate the new reality. And that is the fact. And I think that the General Counsel of the Bar must begin to examine the issue of adverts, must begin to examine the issue of prohibition of, you know, doing other businesses in order to ensure that we can still do this profession and have some level of respect, because time is coming where these young generations of boys who are coming, who are technological, so, you know, these guys are, you know, they are wizards on technology. They will just knock you off. You know, as I said earlier, there's agreements people are doing online. They don't need to see you, and they render service to a client. And clients will prefer rather you coming to you, who will tell them that this is how much you're going to charge you at 10% or 20%. There are those who will do this business online and without even seeing the client and render their service and collect their money and move on. You know, the most important thing is turnover. They want more turnover and all that. You know? So we have to be careful with being rigid with these rules, because the time is coming where technology will displace even the customary way of doing things, and we will be the one to lose at the end of the day if we don't reflect the new reality in some of the rules we are making as lawyers.
Okay, finally, and this question is closely related to the earlier. Okay, Chief, you want to intervene? An intervention from you, Chief? Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to check on what my colleague, Dr. Ubani, had just said on online trading. If you look at the process of online trading, is there any way a lawyer will engage in online trading without being physically present, knowing that he also acquire property? He has to buy the stock to put in the place and install the facilities which business will be carried on. Is there any really possible way other than simply having an outfit and investing in it for them to carry on. Is there any way a lawyer will own one online trading, this like Conga? One lawyer owns it. Anyway, can run it without being personally involved.
Dr. Ubani, do you have any comments in response to the? Yeah.
It all goes to show the new reality. There is no way you can run such business because you will use your laptop and you have to physically deal with people. And it is a time-consuming business transaction. Those who run cryptocurrency and all that, and who engage in this training, how to engage, it's a full-time job. Some people say that they will start by 3 a.m. In fact, it's in the night they even trade. Because 1 minute absence, your whole money you have invested in the whole thing will just go. So it requires and allow professionals to do it, but getting yourself directly involved, there is no way you would do it and without breaching the rules of professional conduct. Just like Uber business, you can invest in it, but don't be the one to do it. You can also invest in all these other online businesses and help people to do it, train them and let them be trained to do it on your behalf, whereas you are concentrating in your law practice. Or if you want to leave the law practice to go and do all this business that fetch you good money, more than it. Why don't you go? You can't carry shit, on your 2 ears, as we say in Igbo proverb. A dog cannot carry shit on his 2 ears. You cannot be in this legal profession. And you see other businesses and all that. Why, if that business is so good and so this, and I've seen many lawyers, who after graduating from law, even going to law school, they go into acting. There is this girl that went into BB Niger, I said she prefer going to do this Big Brother rather than going to law school. It's a matter of choice. But she was even evicted last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago and all that. So it's a matter of choice. If you choose to go and do business of trading and buying or Uber, go ahead, because easy money comes from it. But you cannot in any way want to be a lawyer, with our conservative nature, with our ancient way of behavior, and you still want to now be a trader and Uber driver. No, you can't. Two of them cannot go side by side. That's the problem. So choose one. Let us make a choice. Let's make a choice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ubani. The last question is, and it's closely related to the first question. Can a lawyer partner with a tax consultant to run a firm to render both legal and tax consultancy services? Tax and a partnership of tax consultancy and legal practice together. Can such a partnership be formed under the rules of professional conduct?
Yeah, this is a new thing that is evolving. It's evolving. We have here the situation where some banks will just employ some lawyers and now want to delve into some of the areas, even though they are not lawyers, but they get a lawyer involved and all that. Now, it's a careful thing that the legal profession is looking into. In fact, at the time, the section on legal practice have to issue some warning to some of those companies that come together to do this, what we call, interrelated or integrated, services. A tax, a consultancy, legal profession, and all manner of things. There is no way you can run that without violating the rules of professional conduct. That's why, as I said earlier, we have to get these rules reviewed and take into cognizance the new reality. These young boys that are coming with so much knowledge on technology may come up with some of these wide ideas, and if they're not accommodated, they're ready to beat the rule and actually go to hell. And then we now run into a problem of how to control them. So we need to really sit down with some of these boys who are technological. If you see their high level of understanding of technology is high, we need to see a way to accommodate and rebrand and re-strategize and come to a situation where things are done so that we don't run into a problem where all of them will enter into violating this rule, wholesale, and we now have a problem of controlling them. So if we don't reflect the new reality, we may run into a problem very, very soon. So, but for now, if you really want to apply the rules strictly, you can see that kind of thing that the person has asked will run into, there will be a violation. But as I said earlier, there must be amendments to really accommodate this new reality. These boys are becoming too wise and knowledgeable with technology, and there is no way you can keep them down for too long.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ohimor, Mr. Ohimor, there's a question here. You talked about lawyers investing in business. The question is whether when a lawyer opens a store and engage or employ a sales representative, will that qualify as investment? If as a lawyer I open a store and employ someone to be selling there, does that qualify as investment, or I'm involved in buying and selling?
It suggests to me that it's not quite investment, because as you have said, the man is an employee. So it appears to me that you are still involved in management. I think that what investment looks at is the attempt to separate ownership from management. You need to fine-tune that. The ownership is distinct and separate from management. If you can do that, then there's no problem with owning. There's a problem with managing it. So an employee is not necessarily management. I don't know if that answers the question. I would be careful. I would think that there's a potential for conflict, and that it would be best for you to open that shop with other investors, and the company employs people to run it. Then you're clear. Especially if it's not just you who owns it, there are other investors. And then, so there's a separation between management and ownership. That would be my advice.
Okay, Chief, I will come to you for your final thoughts. Chief, I'll come to you shortly for your final thoughts. Mr. Ohimor, the last question is.
I have.
Okay, Chief, you can go on.
One small observation first.
Okay.
The question you asked Dr. Ubani about a law firm employing another set of professionals to come and work with him, or those who are qualified for their own job. That was the problem of multidisciplinary law offices, which we dealt with when I was president of the bar. We investigated it properly and said it is not going to be workable for us. If the law firm decide to arrange to have an outfit for accountants, applications will come. Then you'll be sharing the fees with the accountants if they work together in one particular case. That will be a violation. Again, even the accountancy profession have their own rules too. They won't accept this one of their own accountancy firm recruiting lawyers to work for them. We know that in many companies, especially banks in those days, they recruited lawyers to work for them. And when their mortgages are made, the ones that they have collected specimens from lawyers of the past, their own lawyers inside the bank now frank those mortgages and charges. And then in the banking charges, they charge the amount that a lawyer ought to have charged. We took the matter of a bank cannot practice law. The lawyer employed by a bank is part of the bank. And if the bank does anything to the lawyer, the bank is deemed to have done it itself. Because as you know it, we facet terrarium, facet the sea. He who does an act to another is deemed to have done it for himself. So this question of multidisciplinary law firms is one that the Bar Association will take very, very seriously. I think that of the bank took us to court. We took one bank to court for this topic. So if you want them to work for you, no problem. Don't let them charge fees, which you pass on. don't know what the position is now.
Thank you so much, Chief. Mr. Ohimor, we have a final question for you. You talked about a lot of business opportunities for lawyers, but a crucial question is, can lawyers fund these businesses, considering the financial status of Nigerian lawyers, the average Nigerian lawyer?
Well, I think they can. First of all, and I'm happy that even Ubani had, first, you need money to fund a business. But I think that we worry too much about funding. We don't worry enough about who is our market. For me, as a business, somebody who's trained in business, funding is not the first thing you look at. The question is there a sufficient market? In other words, the market is people who have a need that are able to pay for it in sufficient quantity for me to serve them and make a profit. Because on the face of it, that's what banks are for. And the other thing is we can partner. You know, sometimes maybe I don't have the money, but I have you, 2, 3 of you as partners. We can begin to put our monies together to fund things. So, you know, I talked quite a bit. For me, I'm very interested in collaboration. Most times when you think of you doing things alone, it appears very difficult. But I understand that if you can cut things down, if 5 of us decide to take on a problem, then it's not as big as it looks when I am the one who is trying to do it alone. So for me, funding is an issue, but you know, in business, we say that if you have a great idea, it can attract funding.
Thank you so much. We will now take final thoughts. We'll start from Chief. In addition to your final thoughts on this issue of lawyer and engagement in business, there's a specific question in addition to any other thing that you want to say. Because while you were talking earlier, you talked about that lawyers are also going into a new business, pastoring, that you have lawyers who are now pastors. And the specific question is whether a judge can engage in that business of pastorship, and any other final thought that you want to share with us.
Strictly speaking, a judge has no business being a pastor. If he goes to church, he pastors a church, and his members have a case before him, what do the ordinary man say? The man passing on the Warri road, who knows that that man, one of the parties, is a member of his church, and is appearing before him against another one who is not a member of the church. What will the man on the keke driving along Warri road, who knows this fact, what will he feel about the church? He will feel that he will favor his member. And if the case gets in favor of the member, of course, the case would have been made. The man who lost will say, of course, I lost because the judge and my opponent are members of the same church. He is his pastor. Pastoring is a very personal thing, so I don't think it is right for a judge to be a pastor. He's supposed to hold the scale, hold the balance between those who come before him. A judge who is a pastor hardly be said to hold the scale with a balance when those who appear before him. Don't say that they are not honest people, but we are all human beings. There's no way you can convince the man who lost that he lost. because no way you can convince him to agree. But he didn't lose because judge is a member of the victors. That is the way I look at it.
Your final comments, Chief.
Not advisable.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Chief. Dr. Ubani, your final comments.
I want to really appreciate this great branch for a wonderful topic like this. I think everyone is a bit more enlightened by this wonderful subject, especially with the experience that Chief Okpoko brought to bear with the subject. We go home better and learned with this subject, and then know that we can really do one or two things that is clearly not inconsistent with the legal practice and earn some streams of income in order to keep our families and our lives afloat. It's very important, the Chief will always laugh, there is no dignity in poverty, so let's explore let's explore every opportunity, sir, to make sure that we don't, let us not denigrate the profession, may we not denigrate our person by saying that the rules say we cannot do any other thing except this. And when the roads are closed and when the marketplace is short, there must be some level of engagement in order to put food on our table. So it's clearly a very good topic, and I encourage this great branch to engage in this. And it's something that is worthy to be actually copied by other branches. I must appreciate the leadership and the membership for giving us the opportunity to do this. Any other time you have such a wonderful subject, just as a listener, I can also participate and learn one or two things. I must tell you that I have actually benefited from this intercourse this afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ubani. Mr. Ohimor, can we have your final comments, please?
Well, to just thank you again for the opportunity. I think I feel wonderful to be, especially in the midst of giants in this profession. I think that for me, going forward, can we talk more about collaborating as a people? I see opportunities there. A lot of because what one doesn't know, some of the other person can bring to the table. So I hope that even after this conversation here, there will be potential partners that I can talk with. Let us try and move some of this from talking to attempting to do some stuff. I wish you all well. It's a challenging time, but this is the stuff that men are made of. You have to find a way to stand, even at these very challenging times. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ohimor. Before I am not qualified to offer the appreciation, I will call the chairman of the branch to appreciate our panelists and participants. But before I do that, Dr. Ubani mentioned participating as a participant. Yes, we have a webinar that will be taking place in 2 weeks' time, and that webinar will be looking at the Petroleum Industry Act and host communities. Warri branch, the Niger Delta region, is the art of the oil and gas industry and the Petroleum Industry Act vis-a-vis the community content, the parts on people and practitioners. So we shall be looking at it. Professor Lawrence Asegwa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor of Oil and Gas Law, Faculty of the University of Benin, will be our lead speaker. The details will be published shortly. May I now invite the branch chairman to appreciate.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists, starting from our leader, TJ Okpoko, SNON. Having you is always a good one for us. I will always pray that God keeps you longer, because we have enjoyed everything that you have done. While you have given us the rigidity of the RPC, we have also agreed that there's need for us to look whether we should tinker with it, with the modernity. Now for Ubani, it's very interesting. You have always, at any point in time, I know you enjoy being called upon. And you have said you want to be a panel, you want to be a listener. I'm sure we agreed, this is the third in the series that we have done, and we're going to continue. In this September, we'll have another one, like as Arbitrator has said. It's going to be a continuation, but we need to learn. What we've observed is the COVID, the strike, this one strike, told us that we, the private practitioners, need to think out for the boss. It was not funny at all. So we are going to be engaging ourselves in this kind of topics to help us very well. For Ohimor, we know you are a businessman. You invest a lot. And we know that's why we call on you, particularly when we remember how you have gone to Vietnam and stayed for 2 years. We know that there's something you will talk about in that area. And I'm sure you have given us an insight of upwork. I'm sure those of us are going to search for that upwork. But we go along with give us a guide. I will thank each and every one, those who have sent questions, while the persons who have also participated. It's very interesting. And we thank everyone for making it possible. And for the committee, who happen to be lucky that in the branch, you have technical committee of the webinar committee. They have been doing so much. And then the man who have given us a platform for us to hold this is Amma SAM, right in his office. It gives us the opportunity to use this firm to ensure that we give out this webinar service. I thank you all and the committee members. Thanks and God bless. I appreciate the panelists so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For those of you who could not join early, I saw a comment where someone said I missed Chief Okpoko's lecture. You can watch it in our recorded version on Facebook and other social media platforms. Then, Chief, do you have another comment, final comment, Chief?
Yes, just one thing.
Okay.
Not comments now on what we have just done today. I join my other colleagues to thank the branch for a job well done. I will want us to include in the series a session to deal with police arrest and prosecution of cases. And we need to examine the Criminal Justice Something Act to see the mischief that is rampant in that legislation. The law seems to have thrown away the rights of an accused person to resist being charged to court because the evidence produced does not show any link between him.
Bring me something to drink.
Nowadays, they say if you make an application to say there is nothing in the papers you filed, there's nothing against my client, so my client cannot plead. They say no, let him be tried first. Let us hear from him first before it's done. We have legion of Supreme Court authorities which say that it is an injustice for an accused person to be tried, be arraigned, where there is no iota of evidence against him to warrant his being tried. I think we should think about these ones also, that we help our juniors to fight. Of course, one person cannot fight it. All of us must fight it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. We're very grateful. This is the end of this series. We're going to advertise the fourth series of our webinar on the petroleum industry, art, and post communities development shortly. For those who didn't join early, you can link up through the Facebook platform, MBA Warri at facebook.com. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You order.
All right.